Hello and welcome everybody. We've got Lanananayeej back here again. So as I previously released, I had my Ike matchup chart video that I wanted to show off first because I want people to understand kind of how I view the metagame and how I sort of make tier lists in the Ike vacuum. So now I can apply it to the tier list that I'm about to show everybody here today. So there are a couple things that I want to go over before I get into this. First and foremost, this tier list is not an accurate representation of the current metagame. My tier list is based on what I believe that the metagame will look like as the game becomes more and more optimized over the course of the next 2 years. That is a long time. I think that the metagame is going to shift significantly. If you're wondering where your character is in terms of where they place on a tier list, it is in alphabetical order. Um, I might timestamp the video later, but in the meantime, let's just get into it. And for reference, let's break down these tiers. That way people understand what I mean when I say them. The top 10 characters in the game typically have 0 or very few losing matchups and likely no crippling matchups. There might be exceptions if they have spectacularly winning matchups against other relatively strong characters, but generally these characters have no flaws and are just incredibly strong. Next up, we have the remaining top tiers. Once again, just falling into sort of the same category as top 10, these characters are pretty much uncontested in their class. Very few weaknesses, but you could see a -2 in here. Maybe if they have some good matchups, you could even see a -3 as long as they had sufficiently good matchups to compensate. Next is high tiers. I define high tiers as characters that generally don't have debilitating matchups, so no -3s, no -2s, and also have a significant amount of even or slightly winning matchups. These characters are perfectly fine to pick up. You can solo main them all the way to winning tournaments, I truly believe, and I don't think that you'll have problems maining these characters in any capacity. Next comes mid-tiers. I think mid-tiers are, as the name describes, just right in the middle. These characters have an equal amount of losing and winning matchups, so you're going to struggle as much as you prosper with these characters, and that's not necessarily a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing, just saying that these characters have a very balanced matchup spread. Next we get into low tiers. Low tiers are finally the tipping point for which I believe a character has more losing matchups or more losing and even matchups than winning matchups. These are characters where you're going to find yourself struggling. That doesn't mean they can't win, it just means that you're going to have to work harder than the person above you, usually. Bottom tiers. I think bottom tiers I would define as characters that have very, very few winning matchups or just a couple. These characters have just problems. They have glaring weaknesses that almost all of the roster can abuse. And I think that they can still win, don't get me wrong, but whether or not you want to invest that type of time is up to you. And lastly, I have Yikes. Yikes is what I believe to be the worst character in the game. And I'll just get into that when it comes up. I'm sure there are a lot of guesses, but I have my opinions. So that being said, I'm going to hop right into it. We're going to start with Banjo and Kazooie. Now, I personally think that Banjo and Kazooie is quite low tier. I don't think his moves are good enough. I don't think his combo game is great. Wonder Wing is a pretty meh move. It's very situational and doesn't have a lot of lead-ins into it. Most of the time, if Banjo's winning a matchup, it's because the opponent can't handle grenades or is just having worse hitboxes. His statistics in terms of speed and airspeed aren't great, and his frame data isn't appropriate for this character. Generally just kind of a bad character. Doesn't do very well. Next up, I have Bayonetta. Now, I think that Bayonetta, after all of her buffs, is finally mid-tier. I would hear an argument for high tier. I do think that Bayonetta is near the top of mid tier. And I think that because Bayonetta has a classically good matchup into sorties, specifically some of the ones I'm going to put at the top. You have to remember that a tier list is relative. So at the top, if your top heavy list is full of swords, those who are poor against swords are going to be near the bottom no matter what. Fortunately for Bayonetta, she happens to be quite good into swords. Bowser. Bowser's a high tier, and Bowser's a high tier for a good reason. Bowser is just one of those characters that I don't think he has many losing matchups. I think he has a couple weird ones like Robin and maybe Pikachu that really stomps him into the ground, but it's very hard to find a matchup where you can definitively say, yes, I beat Bowser. He is a very good guess for game type of grappler. He has a lot of good options, and he's very heavy with a decent recovery. He will make sure that you work to win. Bowser Jr. Now, Bowser Jr., unlike his dad here, is a low tier. He just lacks a lot of tools. In general, his combo game is quite insane. If he throws you, he can usually get 70 or convert off of any sort of good hit into 70 damage. But the problem is, he can't get hits. He has two good moves, Fair and Bear, with the weird cannonball moves, and those moves are good, but I don't think they're enough to carry the character. Generally, I think that Bowser Jr.'s item game is also quite weak because of Mecha Koopa's afterwards lag, so you need a lot of work to make this character work. Next I have Byleth. I actually have Byleth in high tier, and this is not because of MKLeo, as many people would probably point out. I actually thought Byleth was going to be high tier before anybody started putting out results with her. She had a lot of good tools. She has range, kill power, a lot of ledge shenanigans, very good stalling in the air, a disadvantage that's alright, an excellent ledge, or not ledge, an excellent offstage reversal. She has excellent offstage game. Just generally, Byleth is a very annoying character, and if you sleep on her, she will hit you with a lot of things that you are just not ready for, and it will not be fun. Next up, Captain Falcon. I have Captain Falcon in high tier as well. He's one of these volatile characters that will blow you up, or he won't be able to land a hit. But he blows you up enough, consistently enough, that I think that he will progress enough to be a high tier character in the metagame. I think that the Captain Falcon mains are enjoying this because, I mean, he's going to be good. You'll be able to play him. Next up, I've got Chrom. So, Chrom has just one super debilitating problem. We all know it. It's his recovery. And characters with bad recoveries, I have a very hard time placing above mid tier. If your recovery is bad, the likelihood that you get blown up by a random matchup is so high. And in a tournament format, that is just so dangerous. His consistency in the neutral game, I don't think is enough to make up for the fact that people are just going to try to guess on you. So I think he's just a mid tier. I think he is worse than his Roy counterpart. Next up, Cloud. So I think Cloud is actually in the remaining top tier section. As opposed to Chrom, his recovery is actually manageable, and the charging of limit assures that people will not try to camp you out with projectile zoning. He can make classically zoning characters come to him as a sword, and that is a very powerful aspect of his kit. Now he does come with his fair share of problems. The lack of kill power without limit, kind of a weak offstage game, but because of his strengths, I truly believe that this character will be pushed into top tier and stay there for a very long time. Forever, actually. Next up, I've got Daisy, and I think that Daisy is high tier. I think that Daisy has proper tools to handle a lot of the swordsmanship in the meta, and get around a lot of the things that a lot of the swords want to do with turnip. Now, she does struggle against some of the frame data heavy characters and characters who can leverage her sword a little bit better, like Ike, but I don't think it's so bad that she deserves to be pushed out of top tier. She can actually contest them quite well. Coming up next, I've got Corrin. Now, Corrin is a weird case. She's got a sword, she's a slow character, she's got huge hitboxes, and her grounded frame data is kind of meh. Overall, I think Corrin is a mid tier. I think that because of those reasons, she's an alright character. They buffed her recovery enough to where it's no longer a liability, and I just think that she can hold her own. I think that she's just run-of-the-mill mid tier. Dark Pit. So Dark Pit, in a similar case to Corrin, just a lot of averaging moves, average setups, average combo game, just solid mid tier. I think his arrows are worse than Pit's, but this character is still a good character if you wanted to pick them up. Next up, I have Dark Samus. Now, I'm a Samus believer. I think that Samus is a high tier character. I think that her ledge trapping, her combo conversions, and her charge shot are enough to carry this character. She also has Zair and one of the longest range grabs in the game. Being pivot grabbed by Samus from center stage of Smashville when they're on ledge is very annoying, and that is something that they will often use. Her dash is one of the better ones that I've seen. It is instant, has a good hurtbox shift, and goes very fast, so she is also excellent at whiff punishing. She has a good ledge trap and also has a good two-framing option with down tilt, even though it's not safe. But she can threaten it, and being able to threaten it is important. Coming up next, I have Diddy Kong. Now, no surprise here, I think Diddy Kong is a top 10 character. I think Diddy Kong is one of the best matchups into swords, and the reason that he is in top 10 is because he consistently can pace up with the swords. I think that Diddy will not get much better than this. I think this is about where he'll stay. And generally, I do think this character is quite good. Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong, one of those characters with an advantage state that would blow your mind, but a neutral and disadvantage that will also blow your mind. He's just a mid-tier. He's one of those characters where if he hits you, he'll blow you up. You hit him, you blow him up, and that's just kind of the matchup. Dr. Mario. We're actually entering the first low tier, or not the first low tier, the first bottom tier. Even after this buffs, this character struggles so much into swords and into faster characters and just generally better characters with his slow movement, kind of poor hitboxes, that he can't even leverage his strong power. So, Dr. Mario, I mean, drop your PhD, pick up Mario, pick up Luigi. Plumbing is the better industry. Being a doctor, not worth. Duck Hunt Dog. So, Duck Hunt Dog falls into the category of what I would say very annoying zoner, even for swords. But the problem is he has a lot of losing matchups in other areas of the game. Even a lot of these mid tiers and high tiers give him trouble. But that being said, I think he has a good enough matchup spread to be put into high tier. Gunman and Can, being frame 1, are really strong and powerful options. Being able to use Can out of hit stun is very strong. It can break combos for a lot of combo heavy characters. And sometimes, even though Duck Hunt Dog is light, he can trade and just avoid kill moves, and then he will live to ridiculous percents while killing you. Overall, I think he's just a solid high tier. The Spacey Agenda. Now, in my previous video, you might have recalled that I don't believe in the Spacey Agenda, but does not mean that I don't think that these two characters, Fox and Falco, are not top tier. They have the tools necessary to do it all. Starting with Falco, up tilt, does your taxes, mows your lawn, makes sure the IRS doesn't chase you, and also kills everything and everybody. Combo move, kill move, does it all. His recovery is quite lackluster, but it's better than Fox's in this regard. But generally, I do think that Fox is a very slightly better character, and the reason that I think that is because unlike Falco's up tilt doing his taxes and mowing his lawn, Fox's up tilt also does that, but then he has Nair into up smash, and it is one of the most indiscriminate kill moves in the game, and it is one of the easier ones to hit. You just get hit by Nair, and you're at 90, and you're dead, and that's it. No ifs, ands, and buts. I think this character is legitimately top tier, even despite his lackluster recovery. Oh no, it's Ganondorf. I think Ganondorf is only bottom tier. I actually don't think Ganon is the worst character in the game. The reason I think that is because I have to factor the human element even as years of optimization come by. I truly believe that Ganon won't be the worst character in the game, just because people, even if they understand him, won't be able to play around a lot of his moves, and he'll just be able to make nasty trades. So overall, I think Ganon is just bottom tier. Just so slow, can't leverage his hitboxes, but he can make you guess sometimes, and that is often enough. Grey Ninja. So, I've got good news for all you Grey Ninja believers out here. I think Grey Ninja is top 10. I think that Grey Ninja has an excellent matchup spread into a lot of the swords that I'm going to be placing in the top 10, and I think he just generally does good into the metagame. I don't think he has many losing matchups, if at all, and I don't think that he struggles in any matchup in particular too harshly. His recovery is excellent, his neutral is insane, his advantage is equally as strong, and his disadvantage is also strong. Just a character kind of lacking in true weaknesses, and that is enough to push him into top 10. Now, Hero, if I could place Hero somewhere, I would place Hero on every single tier in this list. Depending on what he's pulling up from menu, he will either be absolutely devastatingly broken against your character, he'll pull up Bounce if you're a zoner, he'll pull up Oomph and Umph when you're not a zoner, and he'll come up with Flame Slashes when he needs them, and then other times he won't be able to get anything going. So I just have him right in the center, just a mid tier. Ice Climbers. So Ice Climbers, once again, bottom tier. Just a character that has insane technology. We've seen it develop 0 to deaths from almost any good hit with desynchronization combos. Can't wobble you, but does kill you if they do get that sort of desynchronization grab. But they just can't get it. And Nana dies too free. The AI isn't good enough. The recovery is very bad if you understand that the up B, the second character that grabs the ledge, is the vulnerable one. So it is a truly reactable 2-frame, and it is very easy. So I think that they're going to be bottom tier. Next up, I have my man, the boy, Ike. I think that Ike is a top 3 character. I think that as the meta progresses and parrying and option selecting becomes more prevalent, Ike will become better and better because swords suffer the least as the parry metagame improves and the option select metagame improves. Having long reach, a long-reaching down tilt, long-reaching aerials that are safe on shield when landing and when parried is going to be absolutely crucial coming up in the future of the metagame. On top of that, he has excellent ledge challenging options, both as 2-framing with F tilt, up smash, F smash, eruption. Just a lot of moves that will kill you on the spot and are safe and easy to throw out. And I think that ledge game is also a pivotal part of Smash Ultimate. Ike having the 3rd best ledge hang in the game means that he avoids a lot of things that other characters have to deal with for free. And I think that is going to be an insane boon to him coming up in the future of the metagame. Top 3 character. We like Ike. Next up, we've got Incineroar. I think Incineroar, once again, bottom tier character. He's probably right next to Ganon and Dr. Mario. Just incredibly slow character, can't really leverage his hitboxes, can't really get good conversions a lot of the time. But, and this is kind of a weird but, he has some insanely strong matchups into zoners because he will just counter projectiles and then he just has to guess right twice. And that is a powerful thing to have. I unironically think that Incineroar has a winning matchup into Snake. And not just a soft winning matchup. I think he has a +1 into Snake, which is kind of crazy. And I think Snake is really good, so Incineroar is just one of those characters that has very polarizing matchups, mostly against him, but some of them are for him. Next up, in the high tiers, I've got Inkling. I think Inkling is just generally a good character. She has good boxing options, she has good damage output, she has Booyah on a lot of characters. Sometimes it's not true, which makes her struggle, which is why I don't have her in top tier. She can struggle to kill a lot, and her ledge trapping isn't exactly godlike like it is for Samus, but Inkling is still a great character if you want to pick her up. I think that she takes a lot of work because she is a precise character, but you can definitely make her work. Isabelle. So, I used to think that Isabelle was bottom of the barrel, but then I realized bottom of the barrel characters can't really do anything. Isabelle actually has some decent zoning options for a lot of the slower roster, and can actually leverage the fishing rod off the stage to catch a lot of recoveries, and it doesn't return your jump, so she can often put you in a checkmate situation and just keep checkmating you. Like with Cloud, she'll just throw off the fishing rod, and since you can't avoid it, she'll just keep tossing you off until you fully die. I think this character is alright. Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff believers, you're in it. You're getting buffed. You've got Jer now. Jab back air. Could you believe it? That is a very safe, very powerful kill confirm. She's just gotten better and better and better and better. They want to see the return of H-Box. I think Puff is mid-tier. I think she's good enough. I think even into swords nowadays, she has tools to win the matchup. That's not to say that she has a very great spread, because against characters like, say, Samus, where she gets zoned out, or characters like Bayonetta, where they have great airspace control, they can struggle. but I think Puff is a mid-tier and is a viable character nowadays. Joker. So Joker, I've got him in the top 10 still. I have him beneath Ike, and there's one thing that I want to say. I do have my top 10 ordered. I think Joker is fourth place. I think he has a lot of strong tools. I think that Arsene nerfing his recovery is what puts him a little bit lower in my mind, because when you get your comeback mechanic, he is the most likely to instantly be punished or lose it because it makes his recovery worse, and that's a big deal. I think that base Joker is top tier, so if you had to place base Joker, I would place him at the bottom of top tier, but since I also have to consider him with Arsene, I think that this character is legitimately top 10, and I don't see any many arguments against it. Next up, a little bit new addition to the roster, Kazuya. I think that Kazuya is a high tier. No, I don't. I think he's right at the precipice of being a high tier. I think he's a mid tier, the mid tier gatekeeper. He is extremely polarizing in ways that are hard to understand. So even though he has bad matchups into swords, he has bad matchups into some heavies, the basic summation is he doesn't care. If he lands Electric Wind Godfist or Grab, and you're playing a good Kazuya player, you are dead. So he's in a spot where I put him at mid tier simply because I believe that he boils down to sort of a coin flip grappler style like Bowser. But unlike Bowser, his recovery is much worse, his speed is much lower, and his unique jump squat having extra lag at the startup makes it so it's much harder for him to get in. So I think he's just generally a mid-tier character. I don't think he's going to move much farther than that, even as Kazuyas get better and more adept at doing their combos. Ken. Ken in the Shoto bucket, just a solid mid-tier, has a good matchup spread across the board, a lot of winning, a lot of losing, not heavily winning, not heavily losing, just a solid mid-tier. Shoryuken as an anti-air is very good. His combo game is strong, he has excellent shield pressure, and just generally he has a lot of weird things that he can do with his special cancels. I think that does put him in mid-tier, and you have to be aware of that, because the special cancels make him a unique case where he can kind of force really strange guesses where you're not expecting it. So you just gotta watch out for it. King Day to Day. Sad days for the King. I think King Day to Day is a bottom tier. He just doesn't have a lot of good winning matchups. He has a few weird matchups where he does well in, but generally this character is just going to face an overwhelming amount of losing matchups. He's going to get outzoned, outboxed, outsorted, just kind of a wonky character. And I don't think his metagame will ever get any better, especially because Gordo Stick is not a consistent thing that King DDDs can do. Even though his ledge trapping, I would say, is even comparable to Samus's. He just can't get the same sort of neutral to get them onto the ledge. So yeah, bottom tier. King K. Rool. Now, if you asked me before this patch where I thought King K. Rool was, I would have said low tier. But since the patch and seeing all the new stuff that's been coming out with King K. Rool, I think he's the bottom of mid tier. Things are looking up for this king. Wear that crown, because you are basically the king of the low tiers now, or at least the bottom of the mid tiers. Kirby. So, here we are. This is my yikes character. I think that the Kirby metagame won't ever get past where it is now. Not because Kirby won't get new technology, but just because Kirby is just so bad into swords, so bad into a lot of fast characters. Kirby's good into some zoners where he can crouch under projectiles, but generally this character I think will be the worst character in the game, because unlike Ganon, Day-to-Day, Incineroar, Dr. Mario, and Ices, when these characters get a hit, you feel it. When Kirby gets a hit, it's just some small percent, and they can't really do much else. Also, pivotally, a lot of these characters can mess with you off stage. Kirby has a very hard time doing that, even though he has multiple jumps, because he's just too slow. So yeah, I think that Kirby will eventually become the worst character in the game. Link. So I put Link at the bottom of top tier. If you argued high tier, I wouldn't hold it against you. I think that bomb loops, the Nair conversions, the bear conversions, the bear trains, the T-spikes, all this technology that Links have available to them, I think once that gets more practiced, he will be able to compete with the best of them. I'm actually hesitant to put him this low in terms of what will happen in 2 years, because he does have true zero to deaths if you have the bomb in hand, but I have to believe that the human element will keep him at the bottom of top tier, just generally. Now, Little Mac. My man, Little Mac, has been buffed and buffed and buffed and buffed, and I now think that Little Mac is finally out of bottom tier. I think that Little Mac actually has a lot of tools to contest in this current environment. Sure, most of his matchups are still relatively losing, but it's not like they're unwinnable. And he does have the cheese factor of getting KO punch. And even recently, people are discovering kill confirms on this character. This character, while still quite bad in a lot of matchups, is not bottom tier. He has the tools available to be a low tier. I mean, that's not saying much, but, Little Mac's looking up. Lucario, another low tier, has a comeback factor similar to Little Mac, but it's way worse because all the characters in the top 10, top tiers, and mostly high tiers kill Lucario before he can enjoy the benefits of his comeback mechanic, and just generally, he does not have the hitboxes to contest them. Secondly, his Aura Sphere setups aren't true confirms, which is very sad for Lucario. You have to approach with a very risky reverse Aura Sphere, and then you don't even get your true confirm. I just kind of feel bad for Lucario. My man's been in low tier for a long time. Even though he got buffed, it just wasn't enough. Lucas. Another low tier. I think that Lucas is a pretty bad character. His up smash having full invulnerability is pretty strong, but it's so laggy that if you miss, you're guaranteed getting punished. His neutral isn't that strong. His PK fire is much worse than Ness's, I think. He doesn't have the same type of magnet combos. Just in general, I think that Lucas is going to be low tier, and I don't think that's going to get much better for the boy here. Lucina! Now, for the Lucina believers in chat, I have to put Lucina above Ike. I think Lucina is the second best character in the game. Her F smash 2 framing, her down tilt confirming into tech chases, her her general hitbox distribution and where they hit and how fast they are. Her parry game, because of her up tilt being frame 6, is insane. It means that if she parries your move, you're going to get up tilted, and then you're in the worst possible position of getting juggled by Lucina. As her metagame advances, she will start putting characters in their place. She will make sure that if you don't have good answers to swords, you will know. I think Lucina is a top 2 character. Luigi. I was always a Luigi believer. Luigi haters in shambles. This character is good. He has so much technology. He has frame 1 cyclone. He has grab confirms at every conceivable percent. If he lands on you wrong with Nair, he will just 0 to death you without grab. His down tilt is an insane move. His Zair is incredibly good for approaching and is good into sorties. This character, while previously slept on, is now being shown to be a relevant threat in the metagame, and deservedly so. You need to know how to fight Luigi, and you need to take him to platforms. Just a incredibly strong top tier. Next pick, Mario. I think Mario's worse than Luigi. I think they're right next to each other, but if you put a gun to my head and told me which is better, Luigi and Mario, tell me honestly, I would say Luigi. I think Luigi's going to get better than Mario, despite Mario's oppressive frame data and speed. I think that Luigi's guess right once win the game is strong enough to overcome Mario's having to win neutral a couple times in a row, even though he can do it more efficiently. That's just my take on Mario. Marth. So Marth, unfortunately for the boy, he is not up here with Lucina. He is not here with Cloud. He is not here with these guys. He's actually way down here. And unfortunately, it's not really his fault. His hitbox tippers are just so inconsistent that oftentimes people will live to 200%, and when you're trying to edgeguard off stage, you don't actually care that you get the tipper, you just care that you get the hit and it sends further. So I think that even though Lucina is a top 2 character, her counterpart, Marth, is just low tier because he just does not have the same type of interactions. Mega Man! I think Mega Man is high tier. I think Mega Man just has a lot of good tools. Having an item in hand is an insane aspect of any character, and he can place it in his hand relatively safely. And just generally, his zoning is quite strong, especially against a lot of slower characters, so he doesn't struggle in a lot of matchups. He's extremely heavy with a good recovery, so he's also very consistent. I think Mega Man is a solid high tier to pick up. He plays his own game though, so he's not a standard character in any sense, stretch of the imagination. But for the Mega Man mains out there, you're investing in a good character. Meta Knight. So for Meta Knight, I played Meta Knight a lot, and I think he's low tier. Once you know how to SDI his combos efficiently, that he's going to be looking for dash attack and grab, two grounded moves, um, you'll know that he's just not that much of a threat. The only thing that you have to avoid is giving him the sweetest of hits and the cleanest of swings, where he ladders you into the air. But even when he gets the cleanest of swings, usually the strong enough SDI and their human element of not being able to react fast enough humanly, they won't be able to put you in the blast zone. So I think he's just low tier. Just can't win when neutral enough. His edge guarding is quite good, but that doesn't matter in a lot of matchup because you just can't win neutral. Mewtwo. So when I think of Mewtwo, I think of mid-tier. Just a character that has flaws, has strengths, has a good projectile, has bad hurt boxes, has good hitboxes, weirdly, has good options both on stage and around shield, has a good grab game, has a good combo game, has good kill confirms, and can also take stocks early. But the problem is, his hurt box is so bad that it makes him struggle immensely versus swords, and it makes him trade a lot. And as a lightweight character, that is quite crippling, I would say. So, just generally, I would put Mewtwo in mid tier. Next, I've got Mii Brawler. So, as you recall, I'm not a believer in the spacey agenda, but wherever I'm placing Fox, I am placing Mii Brawler. They are basically the same character. They're trying to do the same things, land on you with Nair, hit you with grab, juggle you forever, oppress you with frame data. But I think that Mii Brawler is better than Fox, because at least Mii Brawler can try to mess with you off stage. Foxes generally don't have that capability. Mii Gunner. So Mii Gunner in the line of Mii's, I think is going to be a mid tier. I think a lot of zoners are going to be in the mid tier. Just being able to zone means that you have a pretty polarizing set of matchups, both for and against a lot of characters. And I think that best sums up my position on Mii Gunner. I don't know much about them other than that, but I've seen some of the better ones, and it's just basically basic zoning. Mii Swordy. Mii Swordy is Mii Gunner, but with less zoning. He's not actually a swordsman, if you can believe it. His main game plan is to zone you with chakrams and tornado, and I do think that's the most viable set for that character. I think he's going to be low tier, and I don't think his technology is going to get any better. Min Min. Yes, a character that everybody used to think was top 10. Well, I have officially placed her at the gatekeeper to high tier. I think that she has a polarizing enough time off stage, at ledge, and even in neutral to where I think that she's only high tier. Once you understand how to get around her pressure strings and when her openings are, she becomes a much easier matchup. But when she first came out and people did not understand exactly how to pressure, she was top 10. But as the meta progresses, I think she's going to get worse and worse, but I don't think she'll get much worse than high tier. Just overall a good character with a lot of good aspects to her kit. Mr. Game and Watch, or as I like to call him, Mr. Skill and Fundamentals. He's a mid-tier, and he's a mid-tier for very specific reasons. I think he struggles against the top 10. I think that he really struggles against a lot of the swords that are in top tier and the top 10. So even though he has a very polarizing matchup into a majority of the roster by just up being out of shield and beating them with skill and fundamentals, he just can't oppress the swordies in the same way. So I put him in mid tier because of those polarizing matchups. So I've decided to place Mithra and Pyra in their own categories for people who think that they want to just main one or the other. If I had to have a placement for both Mithra and Pyra, I would place them probably into top tier. Probably in the middle or at the higher echelon of top tier. But as is, with their lackluster recovery, I think that just Mithra would be probably at the bottom of top tier. Now, I'm also going to put Pyra since we're here. I think that Pyra by herself is a low tier. Once you understand that even though her rising aerials auto-cancel, that you can still punish them a lot of the time, especially as faster characters, even if you don't get the hit that confirms, you can close enough space to where she just has to back off or commit to forward tilt. And once you get her committing to those types of moves, they're so slow that if they whiff or you parry or get shielded and it's misspaced, she's going to get punished. She simply does not have the speed or the safety on shield to leverage her power. I think that she will remain low tier, but I think that the combination of Pyra and Mithra put them into solid top tierdom. And you need both. You can't have one or the other. Ness. I think that Ness is mid tier. Same reason as Game & Watch, incredibly polarizing matchups into the top 10 and top tiers, struggles against swords quite harshly, but he does have a very polarizing set of skills that a lot of characters just can't deal with. Yo-Yo at ledge is a checkmate for a ton of recoveries for no reason. Risky loops kill people at 0. PK fire punishes are devastating, and just any solid hit will send you into a tumbling state of disadvantage that you might never recover from. I think this character is mids, and I think that's where he'll continue to be as time progresses. I think the technology won't get much better than this. Olimar. So I'm an Olimar non-believer, but even though I'm an Olimar non-believer, I still think he's high tier. I don't think he's top tier, but I do think he has a good enough matchup spread as well as enough damage output to warrant putting him into high tier. I think that Pikmin are annoying, and it's very hard for your opponent to keep track of which ones they need to play around, especially as you're shuffling them. Overall, just a solid high tier. Pac-Man. So for Pac-Man, once again, I have him kind of in the middle of high tier. This character is very strong, has strong zoning, has strong boxing tools, has Hydrant to land, has an excellent recovery, does well with trades, has kill confirms, can kill early if you don't know how to play around Bell. But the problem is, I think that he does get put down enough by the top 10 and top tiers to only be high tier. I think this is where he'll stay comfortably. Palutena. I call Palutena the top 10 gatekeeper. She used to be top 10 back before her nerfs, but now she is just top tier, and she is the gatekeeper. She has an incredibly strong matchup spread. She has only a few losing matchups, but unfortunately for her, she has quite a crippling matchup into Diddy and another of the top 10 that I'll go over later, and that definitely checks her in her place. She also has a hard time into Lucina and Ike and Joker, but because her matchup spread against the relative rest of the roster is so strong, she is a top tier consistent character worth picking up. Peach, I'm just going to put next to Daisy. Not going to go over that again. I think, though, that Daisy is better than Peach. Alright, Pikachu. Or rather, Pichu. Pichu first. So, if you think Pikachu is top 1, you'd probably think, wow, Pichu must be pretty close. Nope. The self-damage, the lightweight, and actually, if you could believe it, Pichu has a bigger hurt box than Pikachu on the ground, which is just insane to think about. This character is only high tier. His up B not having a hitbox is a big deal. His moves damaging himself are a big deal. And just generally, he's not as good as his older brother Pikachu, the evolutionary form. Oh man, Pikachu, busted. Busted. Top 1. Um, I I would have to hear a very, very, very strong case to remove Pikachu from top 1. I think he has a good matchup into almost everybody. I think Pikachu's worst matchup is very slight losing, and I think even in the top tier, he has winning matchups. But thankfully, for the Ike believers in chat, I think that Pikachu has an even matchup into Ike, or it's even slight Ike favored. Another thing Pikachu does is keep a lot of these top tiers in check by making sure that he can checkmate their recoveries and just generally being a slow, low-profile target. Just generally, Pikachu is like the checker of all powers, and he is not really kept in check at all. He is just top 1. Piranha Plant, bottom tier. I'm just going to quickly go over him because I don't know much about him. You don't see him. His moves are pretty bad. He seems to get just dumped on by a lot of swords, a lot of top tiers, a lot of high tiers, a lot of zoners, a lot of mid-tier zoners. Just generally loses to a lot of characters, and I don't think Batui memes are enough to overcome his crippling weaknesses. Pit! So if you think that Dark Pit's good, I also think that Pit is around the same area, though I think he's a pretty big spot difference apart. I think that arrow control is a big enough factor in these sort of matchups that Pit does outplace Dark Pit by a margin, but they're pretty close. And for the same reasons as Dark Pit, Pit is a mid-tier character. So Pokemon Trainer. I think and really believe that Pokemon Trainer, top 10 baby. Squirtle will cover your sortie matchups quite well. Ivysaur, once you put people into disadvantage with Squirtle, has the up air of the gods and the down air of the devils. He will spike you and it will not be fun. He will juggle you and it will not be fun. Just generally, this character, because of the multifaceted swap system, is very strong and is a prevalent force for swords, for everybody. They have an answer. Simon. So I think that Simon is high tier. I think that if you put wherever you put Min Min, Simon is just right there. Extremely polarizing in a lot of strong ways. Has a pretty good matchup spread into the top and top 10, and just generally is a very great character. I've really come to open my eyes on this character. If you think he's just a funny haha zoner, he actually has incredibly oppressive frame data with the whip, and he can just kind of flowchart you down. And if your risk reward can't beat the flowchart, he is just going to beat you by virtue of whipping you down and taking accurate trades. Ridley. So Ridley, he's a big sufferer of big body syndrome. It's a sad time for Ridley mains in the world today. Even after the quote-unquote buffs, I think he's just a low-tier character. Just gets juggled tremendously. His hurtbox shifting is quite bad. He can't really leverage his moves because they extend his hurtbox. His recovery is lackluster, and he does get checked very hard by Pikachu and some of these top 10 characters. I think that Ridley, no matter how far he goes, will continue to be low tier. Rob. No, Rob. So I think Rob is this good. I think Rob is top 5. Even though the metagame is trying to rally against him, this character continues to show that he is a prevalent force. He has very few losing matchups and even fewer losing games. Because he has so much jank and zero to deaths and ways to murder you, this character will continually prove to you that he can win. Robin. So, because of the mechanic behind Levin Sword, I think that Robin as a character is mids. I think that that weakness puts her in mid tier. If Robin consistently had Levin Sword, I would easily place them into high or even top tier. But because they have the weakness of not always having the sword that they need, this character is just mids. It's hard for me to think of her or them being placed anywhere higher. Rosalina and Luma. Now, Rosalina is an interesting case because she beats Rob, but loses to almost everybody else. So I have to put her in low tier. Having a winning matchup into Rob is quite the strong efficacy, but unfortunately, losing to everybody else kind of counteracts that. So just kind of a low tier. All right, are you ready, Roy fans? You ready? He's not even top 10. I think that as the metagame progresses and people get better at making sure that Roy does not recover to the stage, this character will get much, much worse. As I said, I don't think you can have a very gimpable recovery in terms of consistency and be a top 10 character. The only reason that I would say that Ike doesn't have that sort of flaw that Roy does is because he has multiple avenues for recovery. Roy only has one route, and the only mix-up is already well defined in the metagame, and there's basically no way around it. So Roy mains, I'm sorry, but I think as the metagame progresses, your character is just going to get worse. Ryu. So Ryu, like many of the other Shotos, bam, solid mid-tier. I think Ryu is very slightly better than Ken. I think Kazuya is significantly better than these two. But Ryu has his stuff. He will zone you with Hadouken. It is actually very good. Heavy up tilt, having upper body invulnerability, means that he can actually contest a lot of swords when they're trying to land directly on him. And his whiff punishing with his heavy down tilt is actually quite strong. And I think that Ryu, as the meta progresses, will become better than Ken. Just a solid mid-tier overall. Has polarizing matchups both in zoners and in swords, but can beat up a lot of characters to kind of equalize that out. Samus, much like Dark Samus for the same reasons. High tier, excellent conversions. Just same reasons as Dark Samus, if you want to know, just you would have heard earlier from Dark Samus. Sephiroth. So, Sephiroth is relatively new, but he has a couple of crippling flaws that I have to put him near the lower end of top tier. He does not have a good ground-air answer. He doesn't have a really strong air-to-air in-your-face answer, except for Rising Nair, which is unsafe. I think that he is the worst iteration of a down tilt that a sword can have. He does not have the classical sweep or the poke, he has the slide. I think that significantly hurts the character. His counter is unreliable. His side B is unsafe even on hit if you're not spaced. And his recovery, even though he has the mix-up of Octa Slash or just like the quick draw, is quite abusable. I think that what keeps him this high is One Winged Angel, but since he is just so light, he just can't leverage it most of the time. He just dies before he gets to really use it. Sheik. For your Sheik mains in there, I am a Sheik believer. And by that I mean I believe she's high tier. I think that having to win neutrals so many times in a row and the consistency required to do that goes against our human nature to make errors. I think that she can't possibly be played well enough over the course of super majors or very large tournaments to win. Now, I think that if you were to like co-main Sheik, which is quite hard because she's a difficult character, she would be in top 10 with whatever character you were co-maining her with. But to just solo main Sheik and to not swap, I think she would only be high tier. She just gets caught in too many trades, can't kill. The classical Sheik conundrum of oppressive frame data that does no damage, and then people just trading on you. So I think she'll stay high tier. I think she'll stay high tier for a very long time, if not forever. Shulk. So Shulk, one of those characters where you have to factor in the human element, because if you assume that Shulk could be played optimally all the time forever, I think he would be a top 1 character. But right now I just think he's top tier. Very solid, has a good sword, has good moves, has the Monado art dial storage for very strong surprise attacks. He has a decent recovery, not great, but decent. Gets kind of checked by Pikachu, but it's manageable. Just generally, I think that Shulk, as technology progresses, will get stuck into top tier as people just can't pilot him effectively enough. Richter. Nope, Simon. Sorry, guys. For all you Simon and Richter mains out there, I apologize. But Richter, definitely the cooler character. Just better by sake of being cooler. Snake. So Snake, top 10. Good matchup into Swordies. This is a character that's extremely heavy with an extremely good recovery, even though it doesn't get him into neutral. It does get him back to the stage where all he needs to do is really trade. Some of the best boxing options in the game. Snakes are sleeping on their down tilt. One of the best anti-air moves in the game. Frame 6, kills early, hits everywhere, has so much shield stun it's basically unpunishable. Snake Man, he's an incredibly good character. Coming up next, I have Sonic. I have Sonic actually right below Snake because I think that this character and this character, Rob and Snake, make Sonic be put here. Because otherwise, Sonic would be top 1, I think. Really do. But these two characters check him so hard with gyro, with grenade camping, with laser camping, with nair spamming, with down tilt spamming, that Sonic is relegated to the role of top 10 campers. And I do mean campers. I think in order to play Sonic optimally, you're basically trying to time people out, and a majority of the roster just does not have an answer to that. And as lame as that is, I view that as a viable strategy and a strategy you can win with. Sora. So I'm going to spend a little bit of extra time on Sora because he is brand new. I discussed this in depth with all of my friends and all the people that I play with and people who are trying to lab Sora as quickly as possible. I think that Sora, at the end of his developing metagame, is going to end up right here, in high tier. I don't think that his attributes in terms of being a floaty character are going to ever compensate for the fact Or rather, I think that his moveset and his pseudo-infinites and his crazy combo conversion game is enough to make up for the fact that once you get hit up into the air, you are never coming back down. Um, I think he's better than Kazuya because Kazuya has a really hard time getting one hit, the clean hit that he needs. I think Sora can get hits, but if you're looking for just the clean hit that kills on the spot, he doesn't really have a good way to do that. And he's mostly going to rely on hitting you a few times every stock rather than Kazuya. But he's better at it, so I think he's going to end up high tier. Now, I believe he's going to end up on the low end of high tier. People generally disagree with me and think he's going to be mid or high tier, but I'm going to place my bet that Sora will eventually develop into a low high tier character, and not lower than that. Steve! So Steve is one of those characters that just has very good punish game, very good at a shield, a lot of strong mechanics that you need to understand with the extra hit lag of crafting cart and blocks. His recovery is actually quite good because it's very unreactable. Um, I just think that Steve is a very great character. I think he's in the top tier. This tier is unordered, but I think he would probably be in the middle of top tier. And also, getting up tilt, up tilt, up tilt, jump block, up tilt, jump block, up smashed is a feeling that you're not going to forget quickly. Are you okay? Terry Bogard. Terry Bogard, much like the shuttle players, I think will end up here. Now, I think that Terry Bogard will end up right in between Ken and Ryu. I think that Crack Shoot and his fist move, the side B, I forget the name of it, but that move and Power Geezer and Power Dunk are all good enough moves. Power Dunk just as a combo breaker instead of air dodge is incredibly good. His anti-air is equally as strong, and despite what people may believe, you can actually run up with charged up B. So in a lot of situations where you think he can't contest you, he'll dash up with the charge up B ready as you're about to land, and just rising tackle into you, fully charged, fully invulnerable, and you'll be sad. So yeah, I think he'll be better than Ken, but worse than Ryu. Toon Link. Toon Link, just one of those characters with an excellent matchup spread in all directions. He's like the mid of the mid tiers. He's one of those characters that has good pressure once he can get his item going, but his item is quite laggy to pull. He has a really fast ground speed and really good tilts, but he's just incredibly floaty, and his stall and fall is bad, and he doesn't have a good hitbox to land with unless he already has a bomb. Basically, this character gets popped up and then juggled, but otherwise he's a very strong character. I think he's mid tier. Villager. So Villager, I put him in sort of the mid-tier zoner category, probably the lower end of high tier. I think that he won't be able to zone out characters effectively enough to get past mid-tier, and that generally Villager mains should consider that to be more of a counter pick, especially with the Pocket. Pocket can turn some of these other matchups, such as Rob or Peach or even Link, into relatively easy matchups for at least periods of time while you have their item pocketed. So he does have some niche uses, and he is quite good in that regard, but I don't think he's good enough to overcome the swordsmanship that we're going to see as the meta progresses. Um, so, if you ask me pre-nerf where I thought Wario was, he was top 10, somewhere right here. The problem is they have nerfed his anti-airs enough to where he is struggling to beat swords, so I just have to place him in top tier. I think that Waft confirms, while very strong and very reliable, people now understand them better, and I think as time progresses, they'll become harder and harder to get the clean hit into Waft. They even removed some of the full Waft combos, which is a big deal. I think that Wario now is a top tier, very strong, very polarizing matchup spread, a lot of winning matchups and everybody below him, but I think he just gets put down by these characters up here, these three in particular. Next up, we have Wii Fit, another case of mid-tier zoner, but unlike most other zoners, Wii Fit goes into Kaioken times 10 mode, and then she goes into Super Saiyan mode. You see her deep breathing, and then she gets Super Saiyan hair, and while she is deep breathing, she is a top tier character. But unfortunately, you just can't have that up all the time. So you have to balance out the fact that her generally without deep breathing is like low tier, and her with deep breathing is somewhere at the bottom end of top tier. And I think that settles her out the middle of mid-tier. She also has quite oppressive zoning for slower characters, so she can be polarizing in that regard, but generally I think she's just a mid-tier character. Wolf. So I used to think Wolf was top 10, and then I saw Wolf getting gimped and gimped and gimped and gimped and gimped. Um, Now, I have been watching Charlie the King. I do understand that the Wolf's metagame is progressing at an accelerated rate beyond what I thought it could. He's getting footstool combos and shine confirms and wolf flash trade kills like Icosides do, where he dies but he kills you first so it doesn't matter. Just generally, this character is going to be a strong, prevalent force in the metagame, but I do think he's going to be put down enough by Pikachu, Lucina, Ike, Joker, Rob, and Sonic that he will not. Well, actually, he has a good matchup in the Sonic, but Greninja, perhaps. He'll be put down enough to only be top tier. Yoshi! I love Yoshi, bro. I wish Yoshi was better. I have him as high tier. Um, I think Yoshi's sound effects are top 10, but I think that Yoshi as a character is only high tier. I think his unique double jump armor mechanic is incredibly strong and is the great equalizer to his swords matchup. That being said, even though he can kind of get in through double jump armoring, it's not that reliable and you have to be coming at very strange angles, which you don't often get to do. So I think that Yoshi will remain a high tier character throughout the metagame, and as his meta progresses, he will retain his high tier status. And I don't ever foresee him getting knocked down. The unique double jump mechanic is incredibly strong, and his combo game is very strong. His neutral is pretty weak, but because of the double jump armor and his unpokable shield, he will remain a high tier character. Young Link. I think that Young Link is worse than Link. Now, remember, this takes place over the course of 2 years when characters have been more and more optimized. I think that as links get better with their bomb loops, their nair conversions, their bear trains, when to spike recoveries, how to bomb trap at the ledge, all these things that you have to master, I think that Young Link will just be worse. Young Link doesn't have those things. He has the classical bomb, which is good, and some of his hitboxes and frame data are slightly better, but I don't think it's better enough to argue against the infinites and the kill confirms that Link has. So yeah, I think he's a top tier, but I do think he's below Link. Zelda. So Zelda used to suffer from mid-tier, middle-of-the-road zoning syndrome, but now she has top of mid-tier zoning syndrome. Basically, I think she's one of the better mid-tier zoners, and that's about it. Knight is a very annoying aspect. Ever since they added jab and a down smash instead of the jab, grab, or down smash 50-50, she's a much better character. And just generally, I think that change was significant. It was a really big change. It basically meant that now Zeldos run up and try to jab one you, and if you get jabbed at high percents, you die. And that's powerful. Last and not least, but not the top, I have Zero Suit Samus. Now, a lot of people say Zero Suit Samus top 10, top 15. I'm going to put Zero Suit Samus solidly right before Shulk. So if you think ZSS is top 15, I am right there with you. Her recovery in terms of getting back to neutral is insane. Her ability to get off the ledge is incredibly strong. Her ability to win the neutral game is very good. But the problem is, and every ZSS main will tell you, she is very inconsistent with a lot of her moves. She's going to trade a lot randomly because people are just swinging, trying to trade. She is light, she is tall, and for characters that have huge upward swinging hitboxes, she'll generally struggle because they can actually cover flip, jump, kick in an effective manner. And what she also struggles with, unfortunately, is characters that are very low profiling that have to make her approach and can actually zone her. So even though she has a very polarizing matchup into a lot of zoners, I truly believe that ZSS is the 15th character in the Smash Ultimate roster. So, as a final summation, this is my in 2 years tier list. I believe that this will be the top 10, this will be the top 15, and then after this is the unordered list that I have, except for Kirby, sad Kirby. I think that Kirby will be the worst character in the game. Poyo Poyo. Anyway, thank you again for tuning in. This has been Lanananayeej, and I will see you next time.